It's all about the banks today. As exclusively brought to you last week by Reuters and confirmed over the weekend, banks are given more breathing space to meet liquidity targets. Investors like what they see, European financials charge ahead. I'm Jamie McGeever and this is today's Market Pulse. Well, I'm joined now by Steve Slater. He's Senior Banking Correspondent here at Reuters. Steve, markets giving this news from Basel over the weekend the thumbs up, but doesn't it just underline how weak and fragile Europe's banking system and economies actually are? Yeah,
that is one way of looking at it. Undoubtedly, the reason why they've relaxed these liquidity rules is because of concerns about the Eurozone economy, the worry that if they had put in place these rules, then banks would have retreated more and stopped lending to the domestic economy. So yes, it is a reflection on how weak the Eurozone economy is, certainly.
So longer term then, this might not be such great news for investors in banks?
Well, for the economy in particular, it's pretty weak news. For the banks, it's quite positive in that it shows that regulation is not a one-way street. For a couple of years, we've had toughening capital rules and these quite harsh liquidity rules coming in, or proposed to come in. Now it seems that they will relax in some areas because the economy is in such dire straits that they can't push on all levers at the same time.
But the other side of that would be, well, why are we relaxing the rules and the constraints on the banks? Because it was a financial crisis, a huge crisis. Reforms had to be put in place, but now it seems like we're pulling back. Yeah, well,
that's certainly the argument of a lot of politicians and a lot of regulators. The banks would argue that there was too much coming too fast. They want to see a more orderly process of deleveraging and shrinking their balance sheets rather than try to do it all in the next 2 or 3 years when the economy needs a lot of lending. And their argument is that to put in place these measures would have really restricted any lending to most domestic economies in the Eurozone.
Well, that's the big question now, isn't it? Are banks going to start lending again?
I doubt it. I think what this will do is ease the pressure on them to stop lending or deleveraging, but it looks like that they won't necessarily open the floodgates and start lending freely. I think it will remain a tough couple of years, but this should prevent a real retrenchment by many of the major banks.
Okay, and just to finish up, all banks doing pretty well today. They're all up in positive territory, but which ones or which countries' banks do you think will benefit most?
From the relaxation of the liquidity rules, the French and the German banks seem to be the biggest beneficiaries. They were under the most challenge to meet these new requirements, so they've had a good uplift this morning.
Okay, Steve, thank you very much. Well, shares in Italy's Banca Monte dei Paschi up as much as 17% today, and not just on these new Basel liquidity rules. Chief Executive Fabrizio Viola quoted in an Italian newspaper today as saying the bank can return to profit and can avoid the state taking a stake in it. Monte Paschi is Italy's third largest bank and the oldest surviving bank in the world. And staying with banks, on this day in history, in 1782, the Bank of North America opened its doors for business, making it the United States' first commercial bank. It was based in Philadelphia, but despite the bank's success, the Pennsylvania legislature moved to outlaw private banks in the States. In the state, rather. This led to scores of prospective bankers setting up shop in what was to become the nation's financial centre, New York City. Banks, eh? Where would we be without them? That was today's Market Pulse, but tune in at this time every weekday for your fix of what's moving in markets and why. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.